On tonight's program, we will continue our discussion about how the founders of the United States, including the Puritans, identified with the historical traditions and customs of the ancient Hebrews in the Old Testament and how the Hebrew Bible played a significant role in our nation's founding. This will be a great history lesson for our children. So gather your kids, your grandkids, as we take a journey back through U.S. history. Good evening. I'm Laurie Cardozo-Moore. Proclaiming justice to the nation's mission is to educate Christians about our biblical responsibility to stand with our Jewish brethren and defend the state of Israel against the rise of anti-Semitism. We accomplish our mission by producing award-winning programs and television shows just like this one, to educate and reach Christians around the globe with this mission. And of course, you can tune into our programs. We're going to talk a little bit more about the programs that we have that are on television. You can watch every week. We distribute our programs to 21 media partners around the globe. We're reaching 200 nations, 2.6 billion viewers. So it's critically important, our message, and of course we have to reach Christians around the world. I also want to invite you to become a PJTN watchman tonight. You may ask, what is the role of the watchman? What am I obligated to? The role of the watchman, as God told the prophet Ezekiel, is to warn the inhabitants of the city or our community. The watchman had an important responsibility that if they did not warn the inhabitants and any innocent blood was shed, it would be required of that watchman. However, if the watchman did warn the inhabitants and the inhabitants refused to listen, if any innocent blood was shed, it was required of that person. So it's an important role that we play, and we encourage Christians, Jews, and people of conscience around the world in their own communities to pay attention to the warning signs of anti-Semitism. If you see an anti-Semitic incident, then we want you to stand up in your community. We want to hear from you so we can help you, so we can make some recommendations and suggestions as how you can confront threat in our communities around the globe. And of course, your monthly donation in supporting our mission will help us to continue the work that we're doing globally. So our message is in the headlines. We're educating Christians globally, and of course, people of conscience to this growing threat. In 1 Kings chapter 19, the Lord said to Elijah that he had preserved 7,000 who had not bowed their knee to Baal. Our goal in 2018 is to sign up 7,000 new PJTN watchmen as well. At PJTN, we too believe there are watchmen around the world who have not bowed their knee to the false doctrine of replacement theology. It is replacement theology, ladies and gentlemen, that has fueled the anti-Semitism in Christianity throughout history. Anti-Semitism, unfortunately, is born out of ignorance, and that's why education is key. That's why our programming, that's why the program like this, PJTN Online, is so important. So we can reach people to educate them so they will not be ignorant of what our biblical responsibility is. Of course, the purpose of our award-winning programs is to confront that ignorance with biblical truth. With the minimum donation of just $20 a month, that's just 4 cups of coffee, you can help us reach 2.6 billion viewers each month. So please go to pjtn.org/donate. Now, in the headlines for this week, as world leaders continue to demonize Israel for the audacity of protecting its own citizens from the terrorists in Gaza and now up in Syria, I want to share a video with you about the global impact this tiny nation has on the rest of the world. Let's watch this video.
I'm only one call away. I'll be there to save the day. Superman got nothing on me. I'm only one call away.
One unit has become legendary, the Israeli medical unit.
We did everything that we can to be as fast as possible on ground. Israel's only the world's 152nd biggest country, but it's always one of the first to send disaster relief all over the globe.
No matter where you go, no, you're not alone. I'm only one call away.
The earthquake in Haiti,
I'll be there to save the day.
The tsunami in Japan,
Superman got nothing on me.
The typhoon in the Philippines.
I'm only one call away.
Save a Child's Heart brings children with life-threatening heart defects to Israel for cardiac care.
Save a Child's Heart brings children from all over the world,
From Ethiopia and Iraq.
from Syria,
Tanzania,
from Sudan,
Gaza and Palestinian territories, even when these countries are actually at war with Israel.
Save a Child's Heart volunteers and doctors transport and treat these kids in Israel free of charge.
I just wanna see you smile. No matter where you go, you know you're not alone. I'm only one call away.
Innovation Africa brings Israeli technology to rural African villages. Volunteers have built schools,
Superman got nothing on me.
medical clinics,
I'm only one call
and
away.
change the lives of over 750,000 people by providing tools for solar power and clean water.
When you're weak, I'll be strong. I'm gonna keep holding on.
Israel goes beyond its borders to save a life.
Change the world.
make a difference.
Israel is more than just a country.
Israel.
As people helping other people.
When you feel like hope is gone, just run into my arms. I'm only one call away.
The Israelis came from the other side of the world.
I'll be there to save the day.
No one except the Israeli hospital has taken any of our patients.
Superman got nothing on me. I'm only one. I'm only one call away. I'll be there to save the day. Superman got nothing on me. I'm only one call away. I'm only one call away.
Isn't that incredible? It's amazing the impact that this little tiny country has on so many people's lives and the hope that they bring to so many. It really just amazes me that people have the audacity to accuse Israel of being an apartheid state or using our apartheid tactics to attack innocent people. You can't make this stuff up, folks. And so I wanted to show this to you because I saw this video earlier this week and I wanted you to see how heartwarming this is. This is the character of Israel. This is the character of the Jewish people. And so when you hear, you're watching the news and you're tuning in and you're hearing people talk about how Israel is this and Israel is that, you should share that video with them. It inspired me. Maybe it will inspire the anti-Semites out there too. In other news, I also want to talk about the attacks that are coming from Syria into northern Israel, the Golan Heights. Several days now we've seen rocket attacks, not just from Gaza as we've seen in the past, but now we're looking at the northern border of Syria. And I want you to keep in mind with regards to prophecy, we're told in the Bible, in Ezekiel actually, chapters 38 and 39, that there's going to be a war, a Gog and Magog war with Israel. And the war will come, the enemy will come from the north. And of course, we see these missiles once again being launched from Syria into northern Israel. But think about who the real players are in Syria. We know that Iran, we know that Turkey, and we know that Russia are involved there. Those are the countries. There are several countries but those are the biggest countries that make up the Gog and Magog war, the people that will come against Israel. Don't you find it fascinating that it's these leaders of these three major powers and some smaller ones who are aligning themselves against Israel, and these attacks are coming in? So, but I wanted to share with you a really interesting story because we know how the Islamic culture treats women. We know how the Jewish culture treats women and the Christian culture. But in Islam, women are treated as second-class citizens. They have no rights. They're not respected. Um, but I found it interesting that when there was a Syrian aircraft on yesterday, that was shot down by a Patriot missile. It had invaded Israeli airspace. And so there was a particular commander, actually a captain, an IDF captain, a woman, a young woman, and her name is Or Na Aman. She was commanding on yesterday, the Patriot missile battery, which shot down the Syrian fighter jet over Israel, over the northern Golan Heights on Tuesday. She is the commander of the Patriot Battery of the 138th Battalion. Or was also in charge of the interception of a Syrian drone which fell south of the Lake of Galilee, or the Sea of Galilee, almost 2 weeks to the day of downing the jet. So I think Or deserves the nickname Yael. You all probably remember Yael was the woman who drove the tent peg through the Syrian commander who sought refuge in the tent of her husband. And she also knew that the Israelites were looking for him as well. And she ended up being brave. She knew that this was an evil man, and she took the peg herself and put it through his temple. And I know it sounds kind of nasty, but you know what? Or's got that same type of quality. She is there to defend her people and to defend the land of Israel and to protect the inhabitants. And here was a Syrian fighter jet coming in. There's no telling what his plans were, who he was going to attack, who he was going to destroy. And she took the leadership to take him down. So I just found that fascinating because, again, she's a woman. And in that culture, they're disrespected. So I read somewhere today where it was a double whammy to them. But in other news, I also want to share an interesting poll that was done, research by George Barna and the American Bible Society's annual State of the Bible survey. It had some exciting results about the role that the Bible plays in our society in 2018. I am a firm believer, and it's one of the reasons why we started proclaiming justice to the nations. We know that the largest number of people on the planet happen to be Christians. And so I knew that if we could just produce programming that was quality programming, award-winning, like we do, and broadcast our programming to Christians around the world, that Christians would wake up and realize, oh my gosh, I don't want to come down on the wrong side of history and come against God. I want to honor what God honors. And if God loves Israel, then you know what? I want to love them. And if he expects me to protect them, that the scripture that I am my brother's keeper holds true, even with the Jewish people. But it was interesting because even here in the United States, a lot of people have said, oh, we're a Christian nation. I always remind everybody, we're not a Christian nation. We are a Judeo-Christian nation. But they came out with some interesting statistics which fall in line with what I've always believed. I believe the majority of Americans, we do know that Judaism and Christianity are the two major religions of our country. It's what our country it's those biblical principles our country was founded upon. But in their survey that they conducted, they show that 90% of Americans seek to learn more about the Bible. 90%. Their study goes on to show 57% of Americans are seeking the internet for biblically driven learning. So ladies and gentlemen, we expect this program to continue to grow. We hear on the mainstream news about the fake news, that people are looking for alternative means of getting their news, alternative news outlets, and a lot of them are coming to the internet looking for legitimate sources. But here again, 57% of the Americans out there are seeking the internet for biblically driven information. 50% of the Americans who ponder how to apply lessons from the Bible to their lives. That again, we started this PJTN program, PJTN Online, with you in mind, knowing that there's Christians out there seeking truth, believers who want to know, to live a life that is holy and is right and is good. We all look at what's happening around us and the chaos that rules the order of the day. People are looking for peace. They're looking for answers as to how to conduct their lives, how to change things. And then finally, the study indicates that 60% of Americans who believe their biblical learning has transformed their lives. And this is a truth that I have always believed. I have always believed if you can give Christians the truth about our biblical responsibility to stand with Israel and the Jewish people against the rise of anti-Semitism, it would transform their lives. They would want to change. Now, of course, we know there are always going to be people who hate the Jews, who will hate Israel, and we won't be able to change them. We're looking for the people whose hearts are soft, who want to be authentic in their faith and want to follow God's commandments. And finally, a couple months ago, you all remember me telling you that we were targeted by Facebook. I was denied access for 3 months to get onto our website. And so I had to find alternative ways to get on and read my Facebook content. But I just found out today that Facebook, we're trying to start an ad campaign to try to find more people, more like-minded people to support PJTN. I was just informed today that Facebook is classifying those ads that we're running or trying to run as political, and they're not running them yet because PJTN isn't approved as a political organization by Facebook yet. So I wonder if it's going to take another 3 months. But ladies and gentlemen, we're on the program tonight. They haven't tried to interrupt us. They're blocking our ads so that we can't find new people to follow us on this show. So we really need your help to like this program, to like our Proclaiming Justice to the Nations page, and help share our programming with your family and friends. And we can defeat this. We can defeat Facebook just by doing it on our own. It may be the long way around, but we'll do it anyway. So I need your help in that regard. This is PJTN is why it's why our voice at PJTN is so critically important in support of Israel against the influence of the anti-Semitic, anti-Judeo-Christian, anti-American content being taught to our children with our tax dollars, and why our work is so urgent. It's so vitally needed right now. Just like we see we're being targeted by social media outlets like Facebook, they're trying to squash our message. Why? Because we make an impact. We are influencing hundreds of thousands, millions of people through our programming, and thousands through social media outlets. So we really need your help. But our voice is being heard, and that's why they're targeting us. It is important that we teach our children about the close bond between America and Israel and the importance of why that bond must remain strong. We must protect the future of our children and pass to them the Judeo-Christian values on which our country was founded. PJTN is committed to that cause through our defined efforts to ignite the torch for a new generation of young people willing to stand for those values and for Israel. Many of you who've been following us know that I've been in Florida the last couple of weeks, and I'll be here almost another week, in fact. And we had a great event this morning in Delray Beach to the Company A Men's Group. It was outstanding. A lot of the information that we shared with the Company A men's group about the textbooks and the curriculum and who's behind, Pearson Publishers being behind this monopoly on our children's education and the threat that it poses. And a lot of these men that were there at this luncheon, or this breakfast, I'm sorry, this morning, many of them were veterans. And it was just an honor to have them there and to be able to present this. But it was also shameful because we've allowed our country to move so far away from our original underpinnings, what we originally were intended to be, who we were intended to be. We're going to be announcing an exciting new internship program soon that I think you'll find inspirational, and for which we will need your help and prayerful support on that as well. Your continued partnership and financial support makes all of this possible. So it goes a long way to make our biblical mandate happen. So it is also because of your prayers and financial support that PJTN is making the difference. We do pose a threat, as I said. We are having an impact, and that's why we're being targeted, but it's also why our numbers are growing. So that's exciting. We're not going to keep silent. And with your help, we won't keep silent in your community either. We are on the front lines at PJTN, and of course it comes with a cost. We get targeted by Facebook, but I'm personally asking you to join me on the front lines. Your financial support is so vital. It will help us continue to reach our goal. We're going to watch a short video right now about another opportunity where you can help stand with PJTN. Look at this.
This month marks the 70th anniversary of the historic Declaration of the State of Israel. God's sovereign hand can be seen all over this land. Included in the celebrations is the opening of the American Embassy right here in Jerusalem. In honor of this celebration, PJTN is offering a special 70th anniversary package, which includes a captivating new book and an award-winning DVD. Israel Rising is a unique visual story of Israel's miraculous journey from unforgiving desert to thriving nation. Thousands of years ago, the prophet Ezekiel foretold a future time in which the arid land of Israel would come alive for its people. Now this breathtaking book documents the fulfillment of this vision, as rarely seen photographs from the 1880s to the 1940s are juxtaposed with recent photos of the same locations. This book will inspire and captivate you as it illuminates Israel's foretold awakening in a new and unforgettable way. In addition, you'll receive the award-winning documentary, Israel Indivisible: The Case for the Ancient Homeland. This inspiring film examines the many political twists and turns that make Israel the world's most controversial nation. From Abraham and the Promise to the issues facing the Jewish state today, the film examines the historical, archaeological, legal, and biblical foundations for the modern state of Israel. This is a limited time offer for these two remarkable resources for just a one-time gift of $70 today. Your generous donation will help ensure that PJTN stays on the front lines and in the headlines of all the important issues facing Israel and our Jewish brethren. So please go to pjtn.org today.
So welcome back. And again, we hope that you'll support PJTN. Go to pjtn.org/donate. During this segment of our program, we will discuss the rise of anti-Semitism and continue our Bible study about our responsibility as Christians to stand with our Jewish brethren in Israel against this age-old hatred. In previous programs, we discussed going back to the origin of the word through a Hebraic perspective in order to put the text of Scripture in its proper context. So too, should we the foundational documents of the United States in order to put our constitutional republic into a proper perspective in order to study our history and our future from a proper historical context. We discussed the growing movement globally to revise history with the ultimate goal to deny Israel's rights to her ancient homeland. And finally, we discussed as Christians that we must be grounded in the truth of God's word, upholding a biblical worldview, not a theological or doctrinal perspective so that we will not be led astray by false prophets. So let's discuss the role that the Bible played in the creation of the United States and its constitutional republic. The excerpts of today's program come again from Rabbi Ken Spiro in his book, World Perfect, The Jewish Impact on Civilization. Last week, we left off at Judges chapter 21-25, and we're going to pick up from there. You all probably remember that the Puritans, of course, believed that at that time that everyone, as it says in Judges chapter 21, that it was a period that the early settlers had created, the biblical period of the Judges, when following the conquest of Jericho and the settlement of Canaan. Israel at that time had no king or central authority, and every man did what was right in his own eyes. So the Puritans felt like they were no less in the same situation. And of course, what was right in Puritan eyes, of course, was what the Bible said. But what did it say exactly? So much of it could be subject to interpretation of the reader. Without the Jewish oral law, which helped the Jews understand the Bible, the Puritans were left to their own devices and tended toward a literal interpretation. This sometimes led to a stricter, more fundamentalist observance than Judaism had ever seen. Now, I found that fascinating when I was studying that this week. For example, the Jewish Sabbath is a day of refraining from work as the Bible mandates. However, work in Hebrew, malachah, is defined by Jewish oral law as cessation of all creative activity that was in progress when the tabernacle was built, and which the Bible states ceased on the Sabbath. But the Puritans took the commandment to cease work as unconditional, and their prohibitions were actually more restrictive than what the Jews had themselves practiced. Even household chores such as sweeping floors, making beds, or feeding animals were not allowed for the 24 hours of the day of rest. And adherence was enforced by fines and public floggings. While we stress the importance of the Hebrew Bible to the early American settlers, it is important to note that, of course, the New Testament was revered as well. However, the Hebrew Bible was seen as the original and pure source of Christian values, and also a legalistic and ritualistic guide, something which the New Testament was not. In addition, there was a political agenda involved in this special focus in the Old over the New Testament. Many New Englanders viewed the New Testament as an instrument of justification used by powers that be in Europe to preserve the existing orders. Now, that's interesting. Had not Paul written in his letter to the Romans in chapter 13, verses 1 through 2? And let's take a look at those verses, because I remember during the previous administration, there was a political leader who actually used Romans 13 to try to tell the Christians in the country to simmer down. But this is what it says in Romans 13, verses 1 and 2. Every person must submit to the authorities in power, for all authority comes from God, and the existing authorities are instituted by him. It follows that anyone who rebels against authority is resisting a divine institution, and those who resist have themselves to thank for the punishment they receive. That sure smacked of the divine right of kings and condemnation of the rebels of the Puritan Revolution. No wonder that the Hebrew Bible, with its message of obedience to God alone, of personal responsibility, and of freedom from tyranny, was far more in tune with the mindset of these Protestant splinter sects of America. So think about that, ladies and gentlemen. These Puritans believed that that Romans was used, the book of Romans, especially that verse, was used against them by the leadership who wanted to keep control of them in England. Moving on, focusing even further on the issue of individual responsibility, the Massachusetts Bay Colony enacted legislation requiring parents to teach their children to read and understand the basic principles of religion and capital laws. All towns in New England with a minimum of 50 households were required by law to establish schools and appoint teachers. In 1670, British commissioners making a survey of conditions in the American colonies reported that in Connecticut, fully 1/4 of annual revenues were set aside for free public education. Universities were established, the first being Harvard University, which was founded in 1636, as training school for Puritan ministers. That's Harvard University. That's amazing, because Harvard is far from a university anymore that trains and teaches any ministers. It's just amazing how much we have changed as a country. And many printing presses were imported for the printing and dissemination of books. In insisting on education for all, the Puritans were following Jewish law. Had not the 12th century Jewish philosopher Maimonides admonished, and I quote, "Appoint teachers for the children in every country, province, and city. In any city that does not have a school, excommunicate the people of the city until they get teachers for the children," close quote. That was Maimonides, a Jewish philosopher. Education for all thus became a hallmark of early America, and not just in New England. In addition to Harvard, many other colleges and universities were established under the auspices of various Protestant sects. Yale, William and Mary, Rutgers, Princeton, Brown, King's College, which ultimately became known as Columbia, Johns Hopkins, Dartmouth, etc. The Bible played a central role in these universities. Of course, the curriculum as well was important. All of these institutions of higher learning with both Hebrew and Bible studies offered as required courses. Hebrew, Bible studies, required courses at these universities. That's fascinating. Many of these colleges even adopted some Hebrew word or phrase as part of the official emblem or seal. In fact, beneath the banner containing the Latin Lu e Veritas, the Yale seal, shows an open book with the Hebrew Urim Bitumim, which was a part of the ceremonial breastplate of the high priest in the days of the temple. The Columbia seal has the Hebrew name for God at the top center, with the Hebrew name for one of the angels on a banner toward the middle. Dartmouth uses the Hebrew words meaning God Almighty in a triangle in the upper center of its seal. So popular was the Hebrew language in the late 18th century and early 19th centuries that several students at Yale delivered their commencement orations in Hebrew. Harvard, Yale, Columbia, Brown, Princeton, Johns Hopkins, and the University of Pennsylvania taught courses in Hebrew. All the more remarkable because no university in England at that time offered it. So that was the influence of the Puritans on education in the new colonies. Many of the population, including a significant number of the founding fathers of America, were products of these American universities. Now, this is interesting. For example, Thomas Jefferson attended William and Mary. James Madison, Princeton. Alexander Hamilton went to King's College. Thus, we can be sure that a majority of these political leaders were not only well acquainted with the contents of both the Old and New Testaments, but also had some working knowledge of Hebrew as well. Abraham Catch noted in The Biblical Heritage of American Democracy, he stated, "At the time of the American Revolution, the interest in the knowledge of Hebrew was so widespread as to allow the circulation of the story that certain members of Congress proposed that the use of English be formally prohibited in the United States and Hebrew be substituted for it. That is amazing. If they would have had their way, ladies and gentlemen, we would not be speaking English. We would be speaking Hebrew in the United States of America. That's fascinating. This part of history that we're not taught. I mean, there's so little known, and it's definitely, information is not being taught to our children. Their biblical education colored the American founders' attitude toward not only religion and ethics, but most significantly, politics. We see them adopting the biblical motifs of the Puritans for political reasons. For example, the struggle of the ancient Hebrews against the wicked Pharaoh came to embody the struggle of the colonists against English tyranny. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna wrap up our study for this week. But I wanted to share that with you again to continue this study to show you how far we have drifted from our beginnings as a nation. And unfortunately, as I was presenting this morning to this group of men, this company A group in Delray, I again was shocked, and I shared with them the dismay that we're not teaching. We don't even start teaching children the founding, the beginning of this country any longer. We are now starting in the Reconstruction period. So now when we teach history to our children in our public schools in the United States, we start after the Civil War. We don't teach them about Columbus sailing to the United States. We don't teach them about the founding of the colony. We don't teach them about the struggles that the sacrifices that real human beings made to create this country, to create a constitution. They don't even talk about George Washington and the American Revolution. This is disturbing. We can't know where we're going unless we know where we have come from. With the rise, and of course with the rise of global anti-Semitism that is being fueled by the lies in the Middle East against Israel, and even in our textbooks here in the United States, accusing Israel of being occupiers in their God-given land, we must sound the shofar of truth. As believers, as watchmen on the wall for Israel, we must proclaim justice and warn the inhabitants of the land. God told us in Genesis 12:3, you all know the scripture better than I do. God said, I will bless those who bless you, and he who ignores you, Israel, I will utterly destroy. We have to stand on the side of Almighty God. And if God is going to bless Abraham and his descendants, we had better not ignore them, and we had better bless them too. Why is our mission at PJTN for such a time as this? Because too many Christians have been educated from pulpits that do not teach the Hebrew roots of the Christian faith. I was also honored to meet with Dr. Mary Drabick, who is the president of South Florida Bible College yesterday, and her team took me on a tour of the university, and I was fascinated, especially when I got into the library and I saw the books on Judaica, the books on the Torah, the Talmud, the books on the Holocaust. It was amazing that this is a seminary. In fact, this seminary is growing. She was telling me in our meeting yesterday that a lot of the seminaries are seeing a decrease in pastors signing up. They have almost 800 students who are going to be starting in the fall. They will get a Hebraic foundation in their studies program. And one of the other things that she interestingly told me is that the new students coming in don't even know how to use logic. They haven't been taught logic. So now they have to start a remedial class on logic to teach these incoming students who are coming in. So again, there's the damage that's been done academically to our children. So we have to stand. In fact, we're reminded in Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 6, Moses reminded the Israelites to remember the days of yore and understand the years of each generation. I say this every week, ladies and gentlemen. We are commanded by God to study history. We're to teach these truths to our children when we're walking by the side of the road or we're sitting at home. We have to constantly be teaching these truths to our children. It's critical. We are commanded by God to study history. It has been said that yesterday is history, tomorrow is mystery. Today is a gift, and that's why it's called present. Each of us are only assured of today, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, we must live with wisdom and clear direction as to what God has called us to. In the words of my dear friend, Rabbi Shlomo Riskin, he said, we cannot treat today with proper circumspection unless we are sensitive to the forces of history which preceded it. He went on to say, every generation, a divine voice calls out the particular summons, challenge, or opportunity of that generation. That is why PJTN has been committed to expose the anti-Semitic, anti-American, anti-Judeo-Christian, unconstitutional pro-Islamic content in our nation's textbooks. This is the call of our generation, ladies and gentlemen. The question is only, will we rise up to the occasion? Will we stand and uphold justice and righteousness? Will we proclaim justice to the nations? I want to just close our time of study with Joel chapter 1, verse 3. Your children, tell your children about it. Let your children tell their children, and they their another generation. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to take your questions. So please send me your questions and comments. This is the time. You can just type me out a question, or if you've learned something new, you want to share, you want to make a comment, please do so. But we're going to take a quick break. I want you to look at this video real quick.
From studying history, it's very clear that what starts with the Jews never ends only with the Jews. We must strongly stand against any anti-Semitic trends, for if not stopped, they'll cause harm to all of us, and we'll witness the downfall of our Judeo-Christian Western culture. Today, many people say there's no longer a need for a Jewish state, that Jews around the world no longer need a place of refuge. But anyone who has heard recent statistics about the worldwide rise in anti-Semitism would never make such a claim. The reality is that neo-Nazi groups and Nazi sympathizers are increasing around the world. Surveys show that over 1 billion people in the world harbor anti-Semitic attitudes. Close to 50% believe that Jews have too much power in the business world, and 2/3 of the world's population has never heard of the Holocaust or believe the historic accounts of it are inaccurate. If there's one thing history has taught the Jewish people, a place they can go in time of need is essential, and Israel fulfills that role. But the need for a Jewish state is not limited to being only a refuge for Jews. Jewish tradition in Israel grants full rights for women and people of all races, faiths, and gender. This tradition is what often makes Israel among the first countries to send doctors and field hospitals to any place where a natural disaster occurs, utilizing their medical advances to save lives worldwide. Muslims, Christians, and people of every faith, or those of no faith, have the freedom to worship or not worship as they choose. For Muslims, the Jewish state goes out of its way to provide this freedom. For example, every Israeli university gives students the option of deferring their exams during the month of Ramadan. The Knesset calls off all sessions at sunset during Ramadan to ensure that Muslim Knesset members can break their fasts with the traditional iftar dinner. In an open and democratic manner, opportunities for education, advancement, and careers exist for all citizens in the Jewish state. Sadly, such rights and opportunities do not exist in any of the Muslim Arab states. For example, in neighboring Jordan, Jews cannot become citizens. And in Saudi Arabia, no non-Muslim can become a citizen. Saying that Israel must cease to exist as a Jewish state while accepting that other countries define themselves as Muslim is pure hypocrisy. In most of these countries, no rights exist for non-Muslims, women, and the LGBT community. Don't let yourself be manipulated by evil people with a wicked agenda. When the self-serving villains are in control, good people from all religions suffer. Muslims, Christians, and all people of conscience should stand proudly and show respect for a country that gives so much to the world in so many ways. Do your part, do your research, and do what you can to make a difference. Because what happens in Israel does affect us all. This is not just a Jewish or just an Israeli problem. This is a problem for all humanity, for each and every one of us who believe in freedom and human rights. Learn more about what you can do at pjtn.org.
Welcome back. We designed PJTN Online with you in mind. We hear from our viewers all week long with questions, with comments, and so we wanted to create a space where we could hear from you and share your comments and answer your questions right here on Facebook. So we're excited to have you with us, to join us. You can, if you want to email me, you can always send me a comment or a question at comments@pjtn.org. Of course, I want to encourage you to visit our website at pjtn.org. Get on our mailing list, get our announcements, our newsletters, stay informed, and share that information with your family and friends. Again, as I said earlier, you got to like us on Facebook. You're right here, so let's do it right now. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. We're also there. Visit our pjtn.org/TV on YouTube and sign up to get our media. We're posting new programming and content on that pjtn.org/TV on YouTube every day. So there's plenty of content to help educate you and to share with your family and friends. I also want to encourage you to take a look at our website, all of our social media, and we are going to go ahead and review some of the comments, see if we've got any questions. So hold on just a second. Let's see who's joining us tonight. So we have Lisa Marie, who is with us, saying hello. Good evening, Lisa. She's saying hi, Lori. Candy Wilson is with us tonight. Thank you so much, Candy. I'd love to know where you all are from, where you're watching us from. Candy just said, I told some of my friends at church about PJTN on Sunday, and they are going to start watching. Good for you, Candy. This is how we're going to grow. When people like you tune in and you start learning things, and then you start sharing our PJTN Online on Facebook with your family and friends, this is how we're going to combat the anti-Semitism, ladies and gentlemen. This is our little sphere of influence to be watchmen on the wall. So, Candy, God bless you, and thank you for doing that. We're going to just refresh and just see if we've got any more comments or questions coming in from our audience. We had such a great response last week, I have to tell you. Thank you for doing that. We're going to just refresh and okay, that looks to be about it. So I want to just, in closing, I want to just remind you, I know you're probably thinking, what can I do? And as I said, I spoke to the group, and as I've been speaking to groups across the country, there's a lot that you can do. Number one, you have to pray. Number two, you can get involved in what's happening in your community, but you have to be educated. You have to be informed. I want to encourage you to sign up, get our newsletters, our media alerts, stay involved, stay tuned in to what we're doing, and that way you can be informed and you can be like me and you can articulate this message to your sphere of influence. But we need for you to get involved because I'm only one person. I can't be everywhere around the planet, but you can influence your community. You have skin in the game. You can start by also signing up to become a watchman and support our mission at PJTN. That's So critical, ladies and gentlemen. I can't do this without your financial and your prayerful support. So I hope that you'll consider just $20 a month joining us and helping us to reach 2.6 billion viewers globally with our message. Remember, our goal is 7,000 new global watchmen for PJTN, sharing our website, sharing us on social media. Tell your family and friends again about the program. And of course, if you want to learn more, you can also tune into our award-winning program, Focus on Israel, which is on Daystar TV every week. So there's 2 evenings that you can tune in and watch Focus on Israel. You'll get more information, a lot like what you're seeing here. But we have personal interviews with experts on so many different topics. But you can tune in on Saturday night, 5:30 on Daystar TV. You'll have to check your local listings, your cable, to find out what number it is on your dial. But we also have the show also will broadcast again Sunday night at midnight Eastern Time and 9 p.m. Pacific Time. So it's 2 opportunities every week. And then, of course, on God TV at 2:30 in the afternoon on Wednesdays. So actually, we have 3 opportunities. But you got to check your local listing to see where God TV and Daystar TV are at. But we would love to hear from you. And of course, you can email me, comments@pjtn.org. And of course, the responses that we get from around the world have been incredibly outstanding. Again, visit our events page on our website, pjtn.org. As I said, I've been speaking throughout the state of Florida this month. If you are interested in having me come and speak to your church or synagogue, your civic group, I would love to hear from you. So you can, again, email us at comments@pjtn.org. I think that should pretty much cover it tonight. Again, I want to thank you all for tuning in. And God bless you so much. We want to hear from you, so please send us your comments, send us your questions, and I look forward to seeing you next week right here, PJTN Online, and we're going to continue our study about the Judeo-Christian underpinnings of the United States of America. God bless you, and God bless you for all you do on behalf of our Jewish brethren and the state of Israel. We'll see you next week on PJTN Online.
To support this program, send your tax-deductible gift to Proclaiming Justice to the Nations, P.O. Box 682711, Franklin, Tennessee 37068. You can also support PJTN online. Visit pjtn.org or call 1-877-873-9020.
Anti-Semitism has reached epic proportions, and Israel is now surrounded by nations who seek its destruction. For Israel to lose just one battle would mean losing everything. As Christians, it is our biblical responsibility to stand with our Jewish brethren and Israel. PJTN needs your help to reach more Christians with this urgent message. Please visit our website to become a member today and order our award-winning documentaries. You must decide that you won't be silent. Sign up now at pjtn.org. God bless you, and thank you for your support and prayers.
To support this program, send your tax-deductible gift to